Okay. All right. So, hi everyone. Welcome to the podcast Talk Creative series. In this podcast, we feature the life of creative practitioners and educators shaping our creative industry. So, in this episode, we have Caroline Aprilia, founder and director of MADEIT Design, whom I had the pleasure of knowing her personally at our alma mater, Nanyang Academy of Fine Arts. Outside of her creative practice, she also regularly shares tutorials of design and marketing accessible in numerous social media platforms such as Instagram, TikTok, and of course, recently YouTube. And actually, I've taken a lot of notice and tips and tricks from your YouTube as well. Your Instagram, and it's been working wonders. So yeah, thanks again.
Thank you.
We learn from each other, of course. So for
Thank you.
Caroline, can you share with us a bit about your background and what initially drew your interest to the field of illustration and eventually into your current venture in MADEIT design?
Okay. So first of all, hi everyone. I'm Caroline. I identify as a content creator, I guess. I started out as a kid who likes drawing. I've always been into comic books. Drawing has always been a thing. Illustration has always been one of my biggest hobbies in life. So I feel like continuing my path as an illustrator for my higher learning was a no-brainer. So yeah, one of the biggest choice, younger me picked illustration was purely just because, oh, I love drawing. I want to learn more about it. So yeah, I guess that was what drew me to the field of illustration.
All right, lovely. Then coming into NAFA and also doing your
Mm.
3 year diploma, like how does it generally set your thinking style and also finding your own sort of artistic interests coming into the years?
So when I joined NAFA, I think I didn't really have a lot of expectation because back then I didn't know a lot about the art industry. So I thought it was just gonna be, oh, learning how to draw figures, they teach you how to color, but it was kind of a shock for me because I learned a lot more about the art industry, how to network, how to connect with other people. I met a lot of people in NAFA from many different experience levels, industries, and all that. And it really opened my eye to, oh, so this is how the art industry actually looks like, feels like. And even after I graduated, when I started working full time before I started MADEIT, again, I was shocked because, oh, so this is how work life feels like. I guess I could say I was naive about a lot of things because I was constantly shocked by how the world works. But it has been a fun experience. I've been learning so many things, a lot of things from all the other fellow creatives that I've met throughout my career so far. And when I started MADEIT agency, again, it was another shock because um, it was definitely something new for me, starting my own business, managing a team of fellow creatives as well. So yeah, it's been quite the ride, I guess.
So how do you see the transition be from like graduating, like having a full-time job, and then suddenly like you have this avenue to actually have your own space and running your own practice? Like how's the jump like for you?
Um, to be honest, actually, when I shifted from my full-time work to MADEIT, it was it was during the pandemic. So, and I didn't really have a concrete plan in mind. I was just jumping in. But um it's been great, and it was quite a familiar environment because I was working in an agency prior to starting MADEIT. It's been great meeting a lot of new people. I feel which has also helped with my I'm a huge introvert. I used to have a hard time talking to people and talking to people who are not within my close circle. So being at MADEIT, going to meetings, meeting clients, talking to new people, it's definitely helped a lot grow grow a side of me that I didn't expect. Like I didn't expect I had a side in me that could, be this talkative, meet all these people, sharing all these things. So yeah, it was definitely a huge shift in career and personality wise, I guess.
Right, cool. So you actually mentioned that in your introduction, you said that you're more of a content creator yourself, and it is pretty evident in your current personal that you actually post a lot of tutorials and also sharing lots of tips. So how do you stay engaged while navigating the business aspect of your work? Like you have this one part of digital marketing for work, for clients, and at the same time you have to juggle for your own like personal interest of sharing these tips and tutorials.
Uh, so although I'm an introvert, I actually like talking. Like when it comes to like my close friends or like my family, I've always had a thing for teaching. I used to teach my younger siblings, like maybe with math homework, or my brother is also a designer, so sometimes I help him with that. And since I see my content creation as a hobby, so for me, it wasn't really, although, yes, of course, it was a struggle to adjust in terms of my time management. But in terms of thinking of what content to make, recording content, I find it more of as a hobby for me, like a downtime for me from my agency work, which since it's also my passion, I also find it fun to do. What I do is that I never record my content during working hours. I always prioritize my client work. Once it's done, I usually record my content either at night or during the weekends, since I don't really go out during the weekends anyway. So making content is kind of like my fun weekend time, I guess. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So in terms of creating contents, you also mentioned that it's more of like a downtime for you, right? So
Mm.
bringing the topic back into the agency. So you mentioned that you sort of joined the industry as an agency during the pandemic, right? So what were some of the biggest challenge that you faced in terms of growing your agency, and eventually how did you sort of overcome them?
One of the biggest challenges, and this is one challenge that I didn't expect that I would face, was actually sexism. Because when I first started out, I was still going solo. So most of the meetings I would go on my own, or I would have Zoom meetings on my own. And surprisingly, a lot of the times, my past clients would say things like, "Oh, you're," um, in Indonesian they would say, "Oh, kamu masih kecil banget," and it was in a tone where it felt like they were looking down
Underestimating?
on me.
Yeah.
Yeah, underestimating. And even sometimes they would say, this one time I had a meeting for a brand which its target audience was dominated mostly by male. And the client told me that, "Oh, make sure you get the things right for the content because you're a girl and girls don't know these things." And I was just taken aback by his comments. But from all of these comments that I've been getting about my age and my gender, I feel I started to think it's fine. Don't let it get to you, because I mean, at the end of the day, people are always gonna have something to say about what you are. So I feel like I would always let my work speak for itself, because I feel like once they see the quality of my team members' work and the quality that we could give, they stop giving these underestimating comments. So yeah,
Well said.
one of the biggest challenges.
Well said. That I think that was a very important thing that you actually advocate for, and that is something that you can share, which is something I don't have that much platform to be able to talk much. So I'm glad that you shared on that concern, and I hope this is something that I can bring forward to some of my female members of the team. Not to say because it's just something that only the females can experience and the male can't, but bridging the understanding and building a
Yeah,
better equity of understanding in terms of that emotional level of intelligence. I think that's very important in terms of building the ecosystem as a whole, not just
yeah.
between like peers and colleagues, but also the clients and the ecosystem as a whole. Actually, one thing aside that I'm very curious about now that okay, let's just put it a bit forward. Now that you also have quite a like a humble team of yours, and also even your brother is also joining the team. Are there any particular challenge in transiting from being a solo entrepreneur versus having to manage a team, especially with having quote unquote having a sibling in your team while keeping it professional?
In the beginning, my brother joined the team because I was going solo, but then the workload started to be too much for me. So in the beginning, it was just him helping me out until I find not more team members. But it was again something. It was a shock for me because I did not expect. I had no expectations of how managing a team would be like. Even though it was back then, it was me and two other people. I was uh because I've been working full time before. I always had this promise to myself. I don't want to be the kind of uh, shitty boss. I don't want to be the kind of boss that's too demanding or too mean or too uh yeah. I just want to be someone that's pleasant to work with, just as how I expect my team members are communicative and pleasant to work with as well. So that was one thing, and another thing is that I'm not used to how to say, like telling people what to do, like directing people in what they should be doing. So that was a challenge. And in terms of working with my siblings, I did have a talk with my brother before hiring another team member. If there are more team members, I would expect us to have a professional relationship at work. So I would not give you any special treatment. I would treat you the same as how I treat my other team members. But once we're outside of like the office, once it's outside of working hours, then yeah, we're back to being siblings again. But yeah, that was when my brother was still working with me. He no longer works with me, but yeah, that's how I manage things back
Right.
then.
Okay. Okay. Thanks for clarifying that. I think that was very important. Okay. So coming back into your like one professional, okay, sorry, personal creative venture, which is about sharing tips and tricks on digital marketing. Of course, it goes without saying that now I remember you've hit like a five K milestone, right? Correct, in Instagram or more? I forgot. I'm so sorry. I haven't been
I
keeping.
recently hit 6K. Yeah.
Yeah, 6K. Congratulations. I think that's
Thank
that's
you. Thank
a
you.
good milestone. I mean, especially for given the time that you've been starting out. So, how has this personal capacity of sharing tips and tutorials helped you to grow as a professional and connect with your audience?
I feel like when I first started creating content, I I really did not expect that it would help a lot of people. So one thing I learned is that I learned how to connect more with an audience and listening to more of what they want to see, because I feel like creating content is kind of like a relationship. It's not always about what you want to post. It's not always about, oh, I want to talk about this. But sometimes what I want to talk about is not what the audience wants to see. So sometimes I gotta balance it with what do they want to see? What do they think is interesting? So uh two-way communication kind of thing.
Right. Okay, cool. So, could you share with us some of the biggest success stories that you've had in mind, be it in your professional life and also your personal content creating ventures?
Mm, when it comes to my agency, the success stories would be I kind of see even I try to see even the small things as happy success moments. But I feel like one of the success moments would be when I land a client that's quite big or quite well known in the industry. It would be a moment of celebration. Not, well, of course, I love all of my clients equally, but yeah, it's just a moment of wow, I'm being trusted with so much responsibilities. Although I do feel pressured, but also feel very grateful that they're trusting me to make content for them, make design for them, which will eventually be posted on a platform that will be available to um, tens and thousands of people, which is a great feeling, also a great amount of pressure.
Cool.
In terms of content creation, one of my content went viral, I guess, a few months back. It was quite sudden because the content was up for maybe a week or so. Then suddenly the views jumped to a few 100,000. I was so shocked, but yeah, and reading all the comments saying how my content helped, and even hearing from my fellow creative friends saying, "Oh, I really like your content." It's been such a heartwarming experience for me as well. Yeah.
Lovely. All right. Was it about the the content about the lighting or about the font pairing? I forgot already.
The one about lighting and the one about the color palette.
Yeah, the color palette.
Yeah.
Cool, cool. Yeah, I mean, it's great. It's great to know that the market is there to appreciate and also to view and to learn something out of it. I think as content creators, there's nothing more heartwarming than seeing those values that we are trying to impart in our content being translated well and having these positive comments all over the place to sort of give us affirmation that we are doing the right thing, useful things after all. All right.
Yeah,
So
true.
okay, cool. Maybe thinking back about your journey in NAFA, your full-time job, and currently setting up your agency already, right? Is there like a turning point in which you sort of discover that you can translate illustration into like an agency work per se, and like a turning point into creating your own agency?
Okay, actually, I think this was shortly before the pandemic. Uh, I was, I didn't have a full-time job yet. I was still fresh out of NAFA, graduating. Uh, I had kind of a crisis moment where I realized I was honestly I was having a hard time finding a job in the illustration industry, like as an illustrator. And I started to think maybe I should try looking for jobs in the design industry. Um, but then as I started to think more about my future career path as an illustrator, I started to doubt it more, actually. I thought, do I really want to do this for, say, years ahead in my life? And the more I thought about it, the more I was discouraged about it. And it really threw me off because I thought illustration has always been something that's familiar to me. It's the one thing that I've always practiced for years and years. And now suddenly it's like I'm telling myself, do you really want to do it? But it was at that moment I realized illustration served me better as a hobby rather than a full-time job. And I'm not saying that I don't like design, but as I started my full-time job as a graphic designer, it opened me to a new side of the art industry, and I thought, okay, this works for me. And I actually did apply some of my illustration knowledge, like layout, color theory, and all that for my design work. I still do illustration work every now and then, but I feel like it works better as a hobby on the side rather than a full-time job.
Understand. All right. Thanks for sharing that. But actually, if I can be very honest with you, which might it might have a polarizing view on it. But honestly speaking, ever since year one, I already have a hunch that you're actually better suited for graphics. If coming from me, because actually when I see your works, and actually this is something that other of our ex batchmates can testify. I think we are all kind of have sort of like a unanimous agreement that we can see that you are more on the graphic side. But nevertheless, graphic and illustration are like neighbors, for better or for worse. Yeah, so that's why skills is intertwining and interchangeable. So same goes for me. Like people always tell me that yeah, actually you are more of a photographer and filmmaker rather than a designer. Which for better or for worse, I've grown to accept it. But at the same time, that's what an agency is for. It's like a house to accept different parts of different ideas and styles, which ultimately we hope to translate it to our clients' work, be it for marketing, be it for film, be it for anything. I think we are all just trying to serve our customers the best and thinking of what ways we can enrich their values, regardless of the preferred outcome. Of course, we as designers and agency owners have our certain bias on what medium that we are specialized in, but at the same time, that's where partnership comes in to actually supplement the other party, which might not have the specialty that we have. Yeah, that's
I've
what
heard.
that's what I think about it. So, moving back into your agency, MADEIT Design. So first and
Yeah,
foremost, a very belated congrats of first anniversary to
thank
your
you.
agency, and I think that's very sweet considering all the milestones and also the projects you've taken up. So can you give us a glimpse of what's next for MADEIT Design? Any like potential upcoming projects, genres, or new direction that you are planning to bring the agency forward?
Actually, ever since I started posting content creation work on my personal Instagram, I wanted to apply that to my agency's Instagram because back then the Instagram was more of a posting portfolio work and that's it. So I wanna also be a platform that fellow creatives can, I guess, look up to for like tips. It's kind of like the tips I wish I heard when I was starting out as a designer back then. So yeah, I think that's one of the directions MADEIT is trying to achieve in the future. And also, of course, growing more team members and hopefully landing more clients as well.
Cool. Okay. Of course, another important thing is that how do you envision MADEIT Design makes a difference in the creative industry in the coming years, be it like, in your region or probably in the country? Yeah. Where do you see yourself? Where do you see MADEIT as a change maker? Rather cringe way of saying it, like, or
Mm.
how do you see it being part of the industry in the bigger picture?
Mm. When I first started out MADEIT, I've always had this dream of I want to be like the agency that's responsible for the success of a certain brand or like the success of a certain campaign, or to be like, let's say someone sees a campaign of a certain brand online or on social media and people can um, identify, oh, this is definitely made its work. That's what I always envisioned made it to be in the future ever since I started out.
Cool. That's fair. That's fair. Okay. I think we are almost at the penultimate of the conversation, which I think is
Mm,
the most personal part of it. Of course, you kind of touched upon it a few times already, but just to clarify and to rectify, right? What advice would you give to your juniors who are aspiring to pursue illustration, graphics, or in the
mm.
when they are interested to dive into the creative scene?
For me, definitely is one thing that to keep in mind is networking is very important, which I didn't really realize until like during the later years of NAFA. And what I mean by networking isn't always about business connections, but also, making fellow creative friends because uh, it's always nice to have like a circle of friends who are in the same industry, who maybe can understand what you're going through and you can look to for help if like, let's say, oh, I need a videographer for my project or something, then you have the connection for that. Another thing is also I used to think that when I was going to change to design from illustration, I thought, oh, isn't that too late? Because I thought that I was already in too deep in illustration. But there's never too late for anything. There's never like there's no too old for anything. There's no too late for anything. If you wanna try it, go ahead, go for it, do it. There's no one stopping you except your negative thoughts, which is also what happened to me when I was starting out posting content. Everyone around me, like my family, my friends, were very supportive, and I was the only one thinking, "Oh, what if people think? What are people gonna say? What if people think I'm stupid? What if people think this is a flop? But you never know if you don't give it a try.
Well said.
And
And
another,
I think that has paid off a lot well. So
yeah,
that's good.
yeah. And one last thing is um, to have an "it is what it is" mindset, because working in the creative industry, art is a very subjective. Um, it's a very subjective thing. While a lot of people might say your work is a masterpiece, there are going to be other people who say this isn't that good. This is just but it doesn't mean that your identity as an artist is bad. No, it's just a matter of taste. But I'm not saying to not be open to criticism. Of course, still accept criticism, but also know when to differentiate if it's just a matter of taste, if it's just people not liking it for, not just to hate on you, and if it's actually valid feedback. So yeah, and not take things to heart, of course, when people don't like your work.
Agree. I absolutely agree with some of your opinions, especially on the parts where you say it is what it is. I think thinking back, I think designers tend to justify our identity as designers through our words, which when I think more about it, it doesn't have to be the case, because there are some words which are, some days you really create good words that you can call your own. Some days you just create bad words that you just thought of, like you don't feel like really crediting it for yourself, but it is what it is. You created it, and it's like kind of your creation. So like it or not, you sort of embrace the process of some things that turns out well and some that just flops. But nevertheless, it's always an important milestone to know that it's always things that doesn't work for you that actually helps you grow, and at the same time those that helps you succeed, that it will able to leverage your name further. So there's that balance of knowing what works and what doesn't. And also you also mentioned that art and design again is a very subjective manner. So thinking about going to design, I also thought that design is not just about designing, creating good stuff and creating like very fancy elements. Of course, as we are going through more times and more experience, of course we can create more beautiful works, which again, there's nothing wrong with that, and that's good, because I think ultimately people appreciate beautiful stuff. But again, at the end of the day, I find that design is more on a social skill rather than your creative skill per se. Like you have to really talk to people, understand to them, and like really understand at the core of things. Designing is actually understanding people and how your solutions can actually work for them. Like brands and corporations, especially MNCs, some of those that I've handled are very like business oriented, and it is in our job as designers to justify how we can be like sort of, I'll label myself as a creative consultant. Like usually you have those financial consultants, legal consultants, like business consultants, and here we are as the creative consultant. They deal with stuff that are related to numbers. They relate with sales. They relate with figures. Whereas we as creatives actually took up that numbers on a certain analysis in order to create like a subjective form of work that they might not be able to create on their own, and it is on us to be able to collaborate with them and really create something out of it. So yeah, technically we are creative consultant to help to convert that objective items of data into a subjective form of emotion, and I think that's at the heart of what we are doing.
Yeah, I agree. And to add on a little to that, I feel like what a lot of creatives tend to forget is there's usually like memes or like funny stories about annoying clients, or there's even this hashtag called hashtag clients from hell about like funny annoying client stories. But I feel as designers, yes, of course there are going to be annoying stories, but what we tend to forget is that a lot of these people, they have a little understanding about how design works. And I actually found out about this the more I go on meetings with clients for MADEIT, when they say like they don't, because a lot of things are possible with Photoshop, they find it hard to differentiate like, is this possible? Because you can edit a person out of a photo. I don't know what's actually like a valid request for the design, or if that's too much to ask. So I feel like it's also our job to educate on what's possible to achieve through the project, rather than just calling clients annoying. But yeah, it's sometimes they don't do it with bad intentions. They just they're not familiar with the software. That's all.
Understand. Definitely. I mean, that's the reason why they have us in the first place, but also
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
also on us to actually give a sense of proper awareness of how the industry works, so that even for the future designers in hand, we help them to actually shape the direction that they can potentially be at, and also, to be the next generation to help to steer their way ahead.
Agree.
Yeah. Right. So basically, I think you've already covered a lot of things that I need to ask and share in my
Okay.
So I think that's very amazing. So once again, thank you, Caroline, for sharing. And of course, thank you to everyone that tuned in. Do share what topic, or who else that you would love to have in this podcast. Stay tuned. I'm Antonius from Talk Creative, and till next time. Bye-bye.